Welcome to another episode of the Michael Yardney podcast. Sorry, but I'm going to shatter your very understanding of happiness today. For some listeners, this may be discomforting. For others, it's going to be a revelation because in my chat today with international best-selling author Tom Corley, we're going to explain why wealthy people are happier. Now, I know they say money can't buy happiness, but please bear with me as Tom and I discuss his Rich Habits research so you can understand what we're on about. At the end of today's show, you'll realise it's not a judgment about rich or poor people. However, it will give you a guide just how to get more out of your own life. So let's get on with the discussion.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment, and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect, and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now, here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's authority in wealth creation through property, who has been voted one of Australia's top 50 most influential thought leaders.
In today's episode, I'm going to ask the question, why are wealthy people happier? Is it as simple as having more money, or are there deeper psychological or lifestyle factors at play? And to answer that question, I'm going to have a chat with my good friend Tom Corley, co-author of the international's best-selling book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, and a number of other great books as well. Tom's going to share his research and perspective on how wealth can influence happiness. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Michael. How you doing?
Great, thank you. Now, on any day, if you ask somebody if they're happy, I guess their response will be dictated by maybe their current state of happiness. Are they in the middle of something that's going well, or are they recovering from something that didn't go well? But what has your research shown? Are rich people really happier?
Yeah, this is a good one. And the answer is yes, they are happier. But it's not just because they're sitting on a cube of gold and polishing it every day and looking at it and saying to everybody, look at my gold, look at how beautiful it is. It's nothing at all to do with that. It actually boils down to the science of happiness. I'll just give you the 3-second summary of it. 50% of happiness is determined by your genes. 40% of happiness is determined by your activities, and 10% of happiness is determined by your circumstances. So now we're all genetically predisposed to be happy to a certain extent. So 50% of your personality, whether you're happy or unhappy, is going to be genetic.
So some people are chronically miserable, is that what you're saying?
Well, 50% of their unhappiness, they can point to and say, that's my mom and dad's fault. Right? So it's not my fault that I'm unhappy. This is genetics. But the thing is, I would counter that by saying, yeah, but only 50% of your happiness baseline is genetic. The other 50% has to do with primarily activities and the circumstances of your life. And this is where the idea that the scales tip in favor of the wealthy is the rich are happier because they can engage in a greater number of what I call happiness events. A happiness event might be just going to your beach home periodically, or taking a family vacation on a luxury cruise ship, or even renting out a yacht for a week. The rich people can do that. They can create an abundance of happiness events, and those are happiness events that are emotional. They stick with you. They're long-term memories. Emotional memories are always long-term memories. So now you're creating a long-term memory. And when you look at the wealthy people at the end of their lives, if they've been wealthy for a good part of their lives, they're going to have an abundance of happiness activities, more than the average person will have. And at the end of their life, they're going to say, I had a happy life because I got to do this, I got to do that. But, Michael, you were so kind in allowing me to bring each one of my family members to Australia. And each one of them remembers it. And I had a one-on-one with them for a good 10 days. and they got to see Australia, which very few people in the United States get to see. And so I have this happiness. I have 5 happiness events.
That's when you came along to Wealth Retreat each year.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure. So actually, Tom, it's experiences that bring more happiness rather than material possessions. Now, a moment ago, you mentioned that there are a number of specific activities that increase happiness in people's lives. Can we maybe share what they are?
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out like what actually caused a lot of the happiness in their lives. And I found that when the wealthy self-made millionaires, they pursue these big dreams and these big goals. Like back in 2008, when I decided I was going to write a book, Rich Habits, I didn't know where it was going to lead. But I can tell you, Michael, I've sold probably close to 600,000 copies of that book. I've gotten to travel all over the world. I've really had some incredible experiences. It's given me a lot more money. You know, we can do more things because I pursued a dream. So that dream, whenever I think of Rich Habits and all the work that my Rich Habits business, it makes me happy. I'm very proud of myself. So pursuing dreams and goals or some major purpose in your life, that makes you happy. Engaging in educational reading, that makes the brain happy. The brain likes to learn. So it does fight you initially because it's, when you have to focus, it takes energy. And the brain doesn't like to use up a lot of the energy in the body. So, but once you get going, educational reading will make you happier. Practicing gratitude, practicing optimism every day. Now, the gratitude, I express gratitude for 3 things every day, for 3 things that went right yesterday.
Yes.
That keeps me happy because then I think
that's something you taught me a while ago. So while I always practiced gratitude, it was just easy to say the same things over and over again each morning when I got up. But by having to come up with 3 things I was grateful for that happened yesterday, that's a little bit harder, but it's very powerful, isn't it?
It is, and here's why: because it happened yesterday. It's a real time current memory, and I expressed gratitude one time just coming out of the parking lot of a ShopRite, which is a food store. I nearly had an accident. I avoided that accident. And my first reaction, Michael, because I've made gratitude a habit, is I said, I am so grateful I didn't have that accident. And so you can be grateful for bad things not happening or avoiding bad things. And it still has the same effect. The universe looks down at you and says, well, Tom is grateful for all of these good things and the elimination of these bad things. And the universe wants to give you more of whatever you're grateful about.
So you'll never really be happy if you're not grateful. So we're going through some of the happiness activities that help you feel happier. We've gone through a couple: education, dreaming big, gratitude. I guess optimism, having a positive attitude would make a difference as well, Tom.
Yeah, and this is a tough one, and I'll concede this point that when your life stinks, it's hard to find optimism. I think that that's just a fact. That's why I think the way around it is to pursue some dreams and some goals that could possibly improve your life. And then you, along with that, like pulling a cart, what'll jump onto the cart will be this optimism. When you are optimistic because you're pursuing some dream or some goal and you're overcoming problems and obstacles and adversity, you become more optimistic about the ability to solve problems, adversity, and obstacles. So, you're like, I can handle this. I remember when I was just starting out in my life and I had passed this rigorous CPA exam. And then at the time it was a 3-day exam, 22 hours. And I was given a task of doing a Puerto Rico tax return. Nobody in the office had ever done it. Nobody knew how to do it. So I sat down and I said, if I could pass the CPA exam, I can prepare this tax return. And I did, and I did a great job. I used the same process or thinking when I wrote Rich Habits. I said, I never wrote a book before, but if I can pass the CPA exam, I can write a book. And so when you have these past successes or victories because you pursued some dream or some big goal that you are actually able to realize or achieve, it gives you a sense of optimism moving forward.
Interesting. What are some of the other activities that one should get involved in to make you more happy?
Well, any creative pursuit, just like, my writing, but there are a lot of people that like to paint. I have a client that is an award-winning painter, and my God, Michael, she has to be the happiest person I ever met. She has all of her pictures, her portraits of all these different people on her wall. Bono from YouTube. She's got, Reagan. She's got Obama. She's got all of these celebrities that she painted, and she's won awards for her painting. And she's the happiest person, that you'd ever want to meet. So creative pursuits, will make you happy. My brother Danny is a great guitar player, and he's the happiest guy you ever want to meet because he plays guitar every day, even though he's an attorney. He doesn't like the attorney stuff so much, but he loves his music. And engaging in new activities. Anytime you engage in a new activity, you might be saying, oh, that's so frustrating. I remember when I was trying to learn how to ice skate, Michael, I was so frustrated by it. But the third or fourth time that I was practicing trying to ice skate, that I was able to ice skate, I was on cloud nine. I couldn't believe it. I felt so good, and my confidence grew. And I was able to say, if I could ice skate, I could do this, I could do that. So overcoming a fear, if you have some type of fear that's holding you back in life, and if you lean into that fear and say, I'm going to overcome it, I have a fear of heights. And I remember when we went, my father knew it, because my father had a fear of heights. So he took me up to the Empire State Building, and he made me look down. For 25 minutes, I looked down, and I was still scared, but I remember thinking, wow, I'm not as afraid as I thought I would be. And that's the thing. Fear always is worse than the reality of the experience. So lean into your fear, and helping others, mentoring others. These are all sorts of ways that you could increase your happiness.
What about exercise, Tom? That does various things to the chemicals in your brain.
Yeah. So what I found with the exercise, similar to sleep, is exercise reduces the levels of cortisol almost immediately. So now your stress level goes down, and it also resets your emotional baseline. So if you were amped up and stressed out and you get on a treadmill for 30 minutes, when you get off that treadmill, your emotional baseline will be reset, and your cortisol levels will be reset down to their norms. So, it's really the way to look at it is, I no longer have this unhappiness because I did this aerobic exercise.
Interesting. Any other things you can suggest people get involved in?
Receiving awards. I remember when I just was not sure if I was a good writer. I loved writing, and I had sold a lot of books, but I said, let me take one of my books and put it into a couple of contests, and that was Rich Kids. Well, I put it into 3 contests. I won 2 of the contests, and I got a runner-up on the 3rd contest. And one of the contests that I won, where I got 2nd place in, was Writer's Digest, which is the Bible for professional writers. Authors, successful authors like Stephen King, they subscribe to Writer's Digest. They read it. And so I was very proud of that they had given me an award. So that just made me incredibly happy. Losing weight will make you happy. Being productive at work. I can tell you, I'm the happiest during tax season. One of my businesses that I run, I have a few of them. One of them that I run requires that I work about 65 hours a week during tax season, which lasts about 10 weeks. Michael, when I come home from, first of all, during the whole day, there's a lot of stress, but I feel so productive and when I come home, I feel so happy. I feel like I really accomplished some good things during the day. Building relationships with other happy people. Happy people will infect you with their happiness. So that's another shortcut. Just hook up with some happy people, hang out with them.
Are there differences in how the wealthy maintain those relationships compared to the poor?
Yeah, well, the wealthy are very good at maintaining power relationships. These are relationships with influencers. They make an effort for those relationships. They might actually ignore some of the non-power relationships, which is not necessarily a good thing. But I did notice in my research that they made a habit, the wealthy, out of making happy birthday calls. So that was something that was interesting to me. I said, wow, that's pretty cool that they, that's a thing. I didn't even know that. So yeah, so they do certain things to maintain or build their relationships.
I think one of the things I've realised is that giving back, as you said a moment ago, philanthropy is one way wealthy people feel happier. I know you're involved in charities. You know that we've just recently run another charity ball for very special kids. My wife Pam ran that for a hospice for terminal kids. It seems that giving back, contributing to others, increases your own happiness, Tom.
This just happened to me. So about 3 weeks ago, I got a call from Monica, who is the managing director of the Ashley Lauren Foundation that I'm the president of. And she said, Tom, can you do a podcast with me tomorrow morning? This radio station wants to do a podcast. We're running a fun run event. And so I was like, oh my God, I've got to travel all the way over here. And when I got off the phone, of course, I said yes. Then I got off the phone. I was like, damn it, I got this to do. I got that to do. It's going to ruin. I exercise in the morning. Now I can't do that in the morning. So anyway, but when I was done with the podcast and I was driving home, I felt so good. I was like, that was good that I did that. That was really good. I'm glad I did that. So yeah, giving back, it might stink in the moment. It might occupy your time and your resources, whatever. But when you're done, the feeling that you get of really doing some good in the world just makes you feel good. You're just not the average, ordinary Joe.
Interesting. So clearly, happiness is activity driven. We actually haven't really defined what happiness is. Is there a way of putting some words around it, or is it different for different people?
Yeah. So there's two types of happiness. There's short-term happiness, and then there's long-term happiness. Short-term happiness is, something that goes right in your day. Maybe you made a little bit more money than you thought you'd make, or you got a phone call from a loved one and that made you happy. Long-term happiness is really what I like to call fulfillment. It's the feeling that you are doing the right things in your life, that you are living your authentic, true life, and you're doing things that you should be doing. That long-term happiness, let's say the examples of it, the fruit of that long-term happiness is things like certifications, like my CPA, or creating artwork, or creating a book, or creating something long-term that is evergreen, is never going to go away. It gives you, when I look at my life now versus 20 years ago, I was not happy with my life 20 years ago. I was not fulfilled. I am absolutely fulfilled right now. I look back at the body of work and the things that I've done, and I said, you know what? You did not waste your life. You tried. And that when you put out the effort, you work hard, and you try and create and make a better life for yourself, your family, and those around you, it gives you that long-term happiness that we call fulfillment.
So we're really talking about the rich have fewer problems and are generally happier in life. And I think one of the things you just mentioned is really important. They've got a sense of purpose. They've got a sense of fulfillment. I guess wealth enables them to pursue these more easily than non-wealthy people.
Yeah, I found it interesting that when I first started on the board with the Ashley Lauren Foundation, some of the people that were on the board were not wealthy, but they had businesses in the community. They're wealthy now. At least 2 out of the 5 that was on the board, they're wealthy now. And the same thing happened with a business association that I started in my area, my community. About 2 or 3 of the people on the board are now wealthy when they weren't before. And I think what's interesting, and I found this in my research, is that self-made millionaires, they are members, successful people are members of board of directors of nonprofits, and for a reason. The people, most of the people on the board are successful or trying to be successful.
Now, interestingly, people are going to be listening to this, and it's not a judge of people whether you're rich or poor. We keep saying that sometimes it's your circumstances, but in the countries where most people are listening to this, I think there's the ability for everybody to step up to the next level financially. But for those who aspire to be happier, whether they're wealthy or not at the moment, what key habits or mindset shifts do you suggest they take now rather than just thinking, oh, that's not for me?
Do something that is going to benefit the future you. Do something today, take some action today that's going to create a benefit for the future you. That you can do that. You can, it might require that you sit down and say to yourself, well, what do my future you, what do I want that future you to be? I think that's a good exercise. Write down what you think you should be in the future, who you want to be, what you want to be. And then do something good for yourself, whether it's, taking 15 minutes and going for a walk because you don't exercise, or eating healthy, or studying something that you want to learn that you think could help create a skill or knowledge that could be monetized. Just try something, anything.
Well, one of the things they could try is subscribing to your daily blog at richhabits.net, and I'll leave a link in the show notes, because starting off with some good reading and some mental stimulation as you do every day, I find very, very useful. Of course, if they want to understand more detail about your research, there's a number of books there too at your website, richhabits.net. And of course, we'd recommend that they buy our international best-selling book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, which is a study of how others have achieved more happiness, more wealth, more satisfaction in life. And there's no reason why, if others can't have been able to do it, that you can't. And I'll leave a link for that in the show notes, or you can just get it on Amazon or Kindle, as a lot of people seem to be doing nowadays. Tom, thank you very much. So I guess the conclusion of all this are, wealthy people are happier, but that doesn't mean that you can't be, because happiness is activity driven. It's not a destination. It's a culmination of a lot of frequent happiness events. So it's something you've actually got to work at, because for some people, your genetics just isn't set up to be as happy as others, but you can work around that, Tom. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So if you have a genetically predisposed to be just a friggin' miserable rut, why don't you take the other 50% and try and do some things that are going to make you happy. You can tweak your level of happiness.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time, Tom. Look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks, Michael.
Hope you enjoyed my chat with Tom Corley. He's a fountain of information about the psychology of success. And if you've been following my podcast, well, we give you a lot of information, hard data, facts and evidence. We also spend time talking about the psychology of success, because in my mind, that's the big, big difference between successful investors and the average Australian, the way they think, the habits that they've got. And that's, I guess, one of the reasons Tom and my book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, has become an international bestseller and translated into 7 languages. By the way, if you don't currently subscribe to this show, whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening to it on YouTube or listening to it in a podcast app, just stop for a second and subscribe. Maybe it'd be nice to leave us a review as well. But that way you're going to get the information my guests and I bring you twice a week. And as I said, the psychology is important. Being positive, being comfortable, hearing the bad news is one of the reasons some people are very successful in business, in property, in life in general, because there's lots of negative news. The economy, the political problems, financial challenges, the world keeps throwing this at us. And that's worrying many would-be home buyers and property investors. And sometimes the good news is drowned out, the fact that the property market just keeps rising and has done since the beginning of 2023. So my suggestion is, don't worry about where interest rates are going to be in 3 months or 6 months' time. Don't worry about what's going to happen to an upcoming election coming. Have a think about where our housing markets are going to be in 5 or 10 years' time, considering the considerable strong population growth, the rising economy, the fact that our economy is going to keep doing well. despite all the challenges thrown at it, despite the fact that we've got a great knowledge-based society that's earning more income, and there's all these immigrants coming in aspirationally wanting to buy homes, all that's going to underpin rentals and property values. So be encouraged where our housing market's going to be in 5 or 10 years' time. And if you're interested in investing to take advantage of this, or buying a new home before FOMO drives the herd back into the market, have a chat with my team at Metropole. Have a talk with one of our wealth strategists to discuss your options, because we're much, much more than just another buyer's agent. We help our clients safely create intergenerational wealth through building substantial property portfolios. We're big enough to tip the scales in your favour, but we're small enough to care. So have an obligation-free chat with one of our wealth strategists, metropole.com.au.
Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
In my mindset message today, I'd like to talk to you about the big difference between the rich and the average Australian. So, do you want to know the big secret of why the rich are richer? Of course, many people have studied the topic, many have written about it. Napoleon Hill wrote a book called The 16 Laws of Success after studying wealthy people for 20 years in his classic book, the one we've all read, that he wrote in 1937, Think and Grow Rich. My good friend Tom Corley studied the rich and poor for 5 years, and he wrote his first book, Rich Habits. Then together we wrote Rich Habits, Poor Habits, which has become an international bestseller. Hey, there's a new edition of it out now too, so you can find that at richhabitspoorhabits.com and get the updated edition. But we wrote Rich Habits, Poor Habits, which has become an international bestseller and has been translated into 5 languages. Now, just to make things clear, when I talk about the rich and the poor, this is not a judge of people. They're all important and valuable, but it has to do with the level of wealth they've achieved. And in Australia, there aren't really poor people, or very few, but we're talking about the average Australian. But we've actually found that many things separate the rich from, let's please keep calling them the poor. But contrary to what the poor want to believe, it's not only luck, it's not fate. Tom Corley found that the poor prefer to believe the rich have some advantage that they don't have. This type of thinking enables the poor to remain in their situation without taking any responsibility for it. It's always somebody else's fault, the government or the system or my education or my parents. Now, sure, luck plays a part in life, but lucky people do many proactive things to put themselves in the position to take advantage of the luck when it strikes. So here's the big difference. The poor, and in fact the average Australian, focuses on survival and on instant gratification. They don't think beyond the moment. However, the very rich think and plan very far into the future, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years into the future. Just describing it a different way may help you understand what I'm getting at. The poor think about the moment. They think about paycheck to paycheck, or they don't get checks anymore, do they, but pay period to pay period at the end of the week. The middle class, they're hoping to make it through the month. But the rich, the wealthy, they're planning a year ahead. They're planning their several years ahead for the future. And multi-millionaires, they're thinking decades or so in the future. So if you want more money, if you want more freedom in life, you're going to have to learn to delay gratification. Now, it's interesting how this theme comes up so often in my mindset moments. But successful people have got the ability to work hard to accomplish something which isn't achieved for a long time. They possess higher patience and an aptitude to postpone the enjoyment of their work. That's because they understand that long-term success takes a lot of skill that unsuccessful people don't have or haven't experienced. They know that if you have the easy path now, it's going to be hard later in life, but if you do the hard things in life now, life's going to be easier in the future. So the attributes that the wealthy people have include proper planning for upcoming challenges. They also develop a level of self-confidence, resilience, tolerance. On the other hand, unsuccessful people, by and large, they can't see the forest for the trees. So learning to delay gratification rather than seeking immediate satisfaction, in my mind, is an essential part of success. And that's just as important when it comes to property investing. It takes time to allow the power of leverage and compounding to grow a large asset base of residential properties. Yet too many people are trying to find the next get-rich-quick scheme, the next hotspot, get on top of this quick property cycle that we're experiencing now to get rich quick. It takes time to allow the power of leverage and compounding to grow a substantial asset base. If it happens too easy, if it happens too quickly, it's not going to last. While it takes time to change the ingrained habits and approaches to life that we've all been taught since childhood, the good news is, though, it's entirely doable. So start with small alterations to your thought patterns by acknowledging the habits. That's why I'm making you aware of them. Acknowledge the habits that are now trying to give you instant, immediate gratification. As I said, remember, if it comes too quickly, chances are you're going to lose it again just as readily. All good things take time. And as Warren Buffett wisely said, wealth is the transfer of money from the impatient to the patient. Thank you for spending the last little while with me. I hope you got some benefit from this show. Hey, but before you move on to the next podcast you're hoping to listen to, please let me remind you that I have another show that I produce once a week with leading demographer Simon Kirstenmacher that we call Demographics Decoded, where we unveil the trends that are going to shape your future. This is a must-listen-to podcast for anyone interested in property investment, business, or entrepreneurship. So if you don't currently subscribe to Demographics Decoded, please stop for a second and subscribe on your favourite podcast app or on YouTube. Now, if you did enjoy today's show and you know somebody else who'd benefit, please tell them about the Michael Yardney podcast and Demographics Decoded. There's a share button on every podcast app. On Apple Podcasts, there are 3 little buttons at the top of the player. Or just talk to them, tell them about the Michael Yardney podcast. I hope you're going to be doing them a favour. You're definitely going to be doing me a favour in helping in my quest to make as many people as possible financially literate. Now, you can catch up with me in between these shows on social media, or you can join my private Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and look for the Property Update Facebook group. And I've got a special bonus for you to say thank you for subscribing. Just go to podcastbonus.com.au. There's a link in the show notes, podcastbonus.com.au, where I've got a bunch of ebooks and reports. That's my way of saying thank you to you for taking the time to listen. Oh, by the way, if you haven't listened to the many podcast episodes we've already got, we're well into our 600s of episodes now. You can always listen to the old episodes, which each have lessons about property investment, success, and money. Once again, thanks for listening to today's show.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney Podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?